Hello and welcome to Color Commentary. Today I have formerly Janice Yi, now Janice Tong, on the podcast with me today. And we're here to talk to you guys about our birth story from 2 years ago. I actually knew Janice growing up since youth group when we had something back in the day called Fuse. All the churches and the youth group pastors would kind of come together so that we can worship together and basically have events. I really liked that growing up, and I think that's how we first connected because she was the leader of her church and I was the leader of my church, and so we got to work in those ways. And the only thing I really knew about her though was that she had this amazing voice. Maybe she will sing for us on the podcast today. And while we've had connections here and there over the years, what actually brought us the closest in terms of hanging out with each other is actually motherhood. So I'm really grateful that this stage in life can bring us together in ways we didn't even expect. So our sons, Levi and Jadon, were born one day apart at the start of lockdown in Texas when the pandemic happened. While pregnancy, birth, healing, motherhood, all of it is definitely not easy whatsoever, I was convicted after my episode with Grace to make sure we also bring some maybe lighter stories or stories of quote, quote, more positive experiences as well, so that we can just really reflect and allow this platform to be a place where all moms can share their stories. And so I'm really grateful that Janice was down to do this very last minute. And so right now we are two moms Janice is already in her third trimester and I am about to enter mine because we are pregnant again at the same time. So excuse us in advance for the heavy breathing and, as Janice said, lack of ability to say complete sentences. But without further ado, welcome Janice.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for
seeing
coming.
you and connecting again.
Yes. How are you doing?
Not good. It's so funny because we're like sitting here pregnant and we're like, what do we talk about? What do we do? Like,
yeah, we're really just talking about our babies.
Yeah, I feel like all we talk about is our babies now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, you talk about other things in the beginning, like work and whatever you're doing at the moment. But then when you're in motherhood, it's like all you talk about is kids and your babies. So.
Do you like that? That's all you talk about?
Sometimes, because even like when I go to church or, anywhere else, a lot of people, they kind of, instead of like saying, how are you? They say, oh, what's Levi doing? Or how's Levi? Or they just pay attention to Levi. So that was kind of a little bit of a, oh, okay, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm fine too. Thanks, guys, you know. But I'm used to it now, so.
Yeah, and then when you're pregnant, then they're always like, oh, what does baby want to eat? Or something like that. I'm like, well, I'm hungry too. Or I agree and empathize with you there. Since we are 2 years out of giving birth, and baby amnesia I think is a real thing because I can't really recall it. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good to like kind of just share the lighthearted stories around it. But I'll try to go first just to set it up for us. And so what we're going to do is just share our birth stories and then reflect on motherhood as well and what we are looking forward to as we do prepare for a second child. So for me, this was like the week before was like people were getting scared about the pandemic, and then they just said that we can start working from home. And so I was really excited because, oh my gosh, like I can finally work from home. It's going to be so easy for a couple more weeks because Jadon wasn't due until March 26th. And so the Sunday of that weekend where we were all like, oh my gosh, we're going to work from home, Matt and I were watching The Dark Knight, and like it was really like intense and gory. Was it gory? I don't know, but I just remember like my stomach hurting, and I was like, man, this movie really got to me, right? And then it kept hurting, and I was like, oh, I think this might be contractions. And so we call the doctor, and then they're like, oh yeah, you should come in to check it out. And I was like, oh, I don't think it's actually like this, probably the Braxton Hicks or something. I didn't think it was going to happen because it was 11 days earlier, but my doctor did say that I was already 4 centimeters dilated at my last checkup. And so she was like, it could happen sooner than you think. And so I remember like, okay, I was really hungry. So I remember I wanted to like get something to eat before we went there, but Matt was like, we shouldn't eat anything. And I was really mad afterwards because I didn't get to eat anything for like 24 more hours after that because I ended up having a child, right? And I also didn't want to deliver because my doctor was on spring break with her kids. And so I like really wanted to deliver on time so she could be the one that delivers me. But I knew that probably wouldn't happen since she said I was 4 centimeters dilated. So we go in there, and then the scariest thing for me was actually the IV that they put in at the very beginning. Yeah, because I'm like so scared of shots or like needles.
Right.
Like I'm definitely, so being pregnant, like you cannot avoid those anymore. And so that actually made me, I guess, stronger to that, or like more brave. But then the IV, it's not on the vein, like they put it in your wrist, right? And so, and they missed it like 3 times. And then like I was like crying from that. And so I was like, I can't do this. Because Matt and I were talking about if I should get an epidural. And it's not like I had this conviction to be like all natural or whatever like that. But I was like, I don't want a needle on my back, you know? And so
it's scary.
Yeah. And so after the IV, I was like, I'm not doing an epidural. Like this was already like painful enough. And so we continue forward. And while I am dilated 5 centimeters by then, and my contractions were big enough where they were like, okay, you're going to be going into labor. I was like, oh, okay, crap. So we went upstairs and then we just waited for a long time, because after 5 centimeters, I was kind of stuck at like 7 to 8 maybe for a while. And if you heard last episode, it's 10 centimeters where that's when like you're ready. And so they did the Pitocin. And for me, I didn't have many expectations or like a birth plan. I think some people do have like those preferences. I'm very bad at the research part. And so whatever they gave me, I was okay with. But as they kept coming in and out, the nurse was like, do you want the epidural? And I was like, well, I can't really feel any of these contractions, which I would like to shout out my very painful periods all throughout my upbringing. And if you know me, you guys know that my period cramps are like the worst thing in the world. And so I literally did not feel these contractions. And
that is wild.
Yeah. And so the nurse would be like, this is actually like a really big one, right? And I was like, oh, it barely hurts, right? And so like, it was quite interesting. So I was like, I don't think I need the epidural. Like, I don't think I need the freaking needle, right? And so it was really good and stuff. But then as the contractions were getting worse, I actually was getting really bad back pain. And so then I was like, oh, maybe I should not be stubborn about a needle. I was like thinking about it. I was like, even if it's not the cramp part, there could be other parts of my body that could struggle. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I told Matt, I'm going to like hold his hand and like whatever. But they sent Matt out. Did they send Jarek out for the epidural? Mm-hmm. They made Matt go out. And so I was like crying. I was like, he was going to be my like safety. But I guess like some people, they do that so that it doesn't distract the anesthesiologist from doing it. I have no idea why, because I heard other people use their husband, so that was my plan. If I did have to do it, I would like pinch him till he you know like, do whatever I could to instill any sort of pain. But he left, but luckily it actually wasn't that bad. So for those of you that are thinking about that part, the epidural was actually quite fine.
You don't really see it because they're behind you.
And it's like thinner than the what was the thing I was talking about earlier? IV.
Yes,
the IV is like smaller and thicker, and you see it like going up and like whatever. So I'm very glad. And if I fast forward, like when I was getting stitched up at the end, I was so grateful in that moment. Like I couldn't feel the stitching, and I remember thinking like, I'm so grateful I had gotten this epidural, because it's not really just the contraction, it's like all these other factors. So yeah, basically after that you're just like numb and you're waiting. Basically it was a waiting game for us. I think they had to manually break my water too, because I was stuck. And so once they manually broke it, then they were ready to deliver. And so for the delivery part, he was like, oh, and I realized I am breathing hard now because we are pregnant.
It's hard, okay?
Okay, so for the delivery, and I think I had like a resident doctor that was like checking in until the doctor came. So for the delivery portion of it, for me, he was like, okay, well, this is your first time. You're a first time mom, so this might take a while, right? And that's okay. I'm going to go check in on other stuff and then come back to you from time to time, because you probably don't know how to push it or like things like that, whatever. And if you guys know me, or if you don't know me but only like heard of me, I think like for some reason the reputation of being competitive is often said about me. After my birth story, I realized like that is absolutely me, because I was like, okay, bring it, you know. I was like I was like so like not triggered in a bad, but like it like unleashed something like where I was like, I'm gonna show you how good I can push. And so he was like, okay, so let me see your first push, and it's okay. And then I pushed really hard, and he was like, he told like the medical student who was observing, oh my gosh, okay, tell the other room I'll be there in like maybe like less than an hour, but I'm gonna stay here because I think it's like this is the best push I've ever seen.
Really?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, thank you. And so I was like, and like, if you know, that like gave me more adrenaline to hear him say that. And so like I kept pushing so hard, and I don't even know why the heck I was doing this, okay? I was pushing so hard, and so like I delivered in 30 minutes, and I had that rush where like Jadon like came onto me, and it was just like this overwhelming feeling of everything. And I guess in this sense, like the epidural didn't let me feel the pain, even though I felt the pressure, right?
Yeah.
And so this was, in hindsight, like a really bad decision to push so hard, because I had 3 tears and 2 of them were like the grade, like a severe grade tear.
Gosh, yeah.
And I was like, who told me to push? So, because if you push a little, like, I'm sure there's no strategy to how you push down there. But if I pushed like to where my body felt comfortable and not like some weird competitive spirit just like being unleashed, then like I do feel like the recovery portion would have been maybe a little better, which we'll talk about recovery later. But I remember being mad, and I was like, why? And so like, I think thinking about the next one, I'm like, I am not going to like push hard and just like be more mindful of that portion of it. But yeah, so I think that was mainly my delivery story that I can remember as of now. And I didn't have to wear masks yet, because that's when they said no visitors. So I was sad about that, but in hindsight, that was also helpful, since like then we didn't have to wear clothes and stuff like that. But I was grateful I didn't have to wear masks yet, because I know at some point a lot of them had to wear masks when they deliver.
Well, I heard, my doctor said now they don't have to wear masks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they don't have to do the COVID test either. So I was kind of relieved. Yeah, she said it's by practitioner, but for her, she says she doesn't require it.
Because then sometimes the husband can't come if they have COVID.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, you go.
Yeah, so actually mine's very similar, but I pushed longer than you did.
You weren't competitive.
I'm not competitive. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. But yeah, I mean, same thing with me though, because I'm kind of like extreme, because I was working that day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was scheduled to get induced because Levi came out.
You were late. Levi was actually set to be due before Jadon.
Yeah, I think it was like March 13th.
For you, yeah.
Yes.
So you were the full 40 plus weeks.
And so like I kept working, because I was like, you know what? Like I need to finish, my deadlines or whatever. And I feel good, so I'll just help them out. I don't know if that was the wisest thing to do, because I feel like I should have just taken the days off and like, just rested. But I was literally sitting on a medicine ball. Like, so they let me work from home, and then I was sitting on a medicine ball. I was having like contractions, like, the Braxton Hicks, and I was taking calls.
Oh my gosh, moms are insane.
And so that day, like I kept feeling it, and I was like you, like, oh, I don't know, this just feels like light and whatever. It's just probably because it's like near the end. And then I took a shower that night. I was getting ready for bed, and I was like, oof, this is different. And then I just kept waiting and timing it. I looked at Jerick, and I was like, it's time. I was like, we gotta go. And Jerick was so funny, because he was like scatterbrained. Like he just was trying to pick up everything. He's just like, what do I do? Looking left and right. And I was like, what are you doing? Let's go. So we took our dog, dropped him off on my mom's, because she lives like 2 minutes from us. And then when we dropped our dog off, my mom was like holding my hands, and she's like, you can do this. And I was like, okay, thanks mom, bye.
Yeah.
So off we go to the hospital, and then they were trying to see if I was actually ready to go in and get checked in and everything. And so they finally okayed it, doctor okayed it. And honestly, I just slept. I slept so much. But we got there like around 1 a.m. so we were already tired. And then I was planning not to get epidural. I think every mom's like that. They're like, I'm just gonna do it natural. But then after like the first real contraction, I was like, excuse me, please, I need my epidural. But then the funny thing was, like, Jerick was like, I think you should get it, because like I know you and you have really low pain tolerance. And I was like, you don't know me, And I was like, shut up. He's like, no, you shut up and you get the epidural. And I was like, no. But then after that first contraction, or the second one, I was like, okay, call them right now. And so after doing that, I just literally slept the whole time. It was like all day in labor, sleeping. And then I had one scare, because I think due to the epidural, they couldn't find the baby's heartbeat. And then my blood pressure like dropped. And so I was sleeping. All of a sudden the nurses come in, and like they don't really tell you much when there's like an emergency. And then they just got like the oxygen mask, put it on me, got like the shot, put it through me. And I was just sitting there, like, in my mind I was like, Lord, please, I don't know what's going on, but please protect the baby.
Yeah.
And then the nurse was like, she was such an OG. Like she knew what she was doing. And then she finally got under control, found the baby's heartbeat. And they're like, okay, you're fine. And I'm like, you couldn't explain what's going on. But I think it was a kind of like a rush situation where they're like, okay, we can't find it, the heartbeat. And then mom's blood pressure's low. Go. It was kind of like that. And so Jarek woke up and he was like confused and dazed. And after that, we just like woke up completely and then just kept waiting. And then my doctor comes and she's like, okay, you ready to push? So I pushed for 2 hours. Yeah. 2 hours because
that's
like
tiring.
Yeah. So like you don't really know how to push. You just kind of do what your body tells you to do. Yeah. But like I feel like nobody taught me to push from the bottom. I was pushing from my head. Oh. So what ended up happening was the veins in my face like popped because I was pushing so hard. And so like after the delivery, there was like red stuff like all over my face.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and then Jarek was like telling me you need to push from the bottom, and so he was like, "Stop using your upper strength." And I was like, "I don't know how," you know, like I'm like dying. So 2 hours, like I remember during those 2 hours, there's one point where I was just like laying there sweating, and like I was like, "I can't do this no more." And then the C-section doctor was ready to come in because what happened? What they said was my pelvic bone, it was so narrow, and Levi's head was too big. His head kept going in and out.
Oh, like what are those called? Dingleberries or something? Groundhogging or something?
No, and so like they would be like, oh, we see his head, but then he'll go back in. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And so they're like, okay, we might have to do a C-section. So the C-section doctor comes in, my doctor's there, the nurses are there. Once I saw that man and I was like, who are you? They're like, oh, we might have to put you into surgery. That's when I was like, no. And I was so determined. And I told the doctor, I was like, doctor, I'm going to push. And she's like, okay, go for it. And so everyone's like cheering me on. The nurse is like cheering me on like I'm like running a marathon, you know? Like they're so awesome.
Yeah, shout out nurses.
Yeah, seriously. And like she was like, go girl, you got this. And then I did one final push and then Levi came out. And it was like the most relieving feeling because it's like, you know, something stuck there and then finally came out. And then they put him on me like, and then I was just like so overwhelmed with emotions. And then I remember asking, like, he kept crying and she was like stitching me up and he kept crying. And I was like, why is he crying so much? Yeah. And the doctor's like, he's supposed to. Yeah. And I was like, man, I have no idea about children, about babies. Like, I'm screwed. And then like, that's pretty much my birth story. So like, it was really long. But it wasn't difficult. Like I had a good doctor, a good team, and especially shout out to Jarek. He did such a good job. So yeah, I was really grateful that everything just went a-okay, you know. And then I was healthy, baby was healthy. So
we both had nighttime resting. And then because I remember when I posted, and then you go, oh my gosh, we just gave birth, because we posted like the next day, and like, wait, we just gave birth. I was like, oh my gosh,
because I remember I was on the bed in labor, and then I saw your post, and I was like, whoa. She just had her baby. Like, what the heck? And so I was like, this is exciting. And literally Levi was born the next day.
Yeah. Even as you're sharing and reminding me, for me it was like 9 p.m. till 12 p.m. the next day. And I remember the nurse was just such a steady and like strong presence. And I think we don't forget to shout them out, but just want to shout them out.
Seriously.
Like they're the ones that like give you that steadfastness, I think, that you need. Obviously, and your husband, but
it's different because like our husbands don't like do what they do, right?
Yeah. And like Matt's delivered babies before, like medical training. Like not like,
gotcha. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you know like
also his wife.
Yeah.
So
it's very hyper at that moment. So I guess like shouting out husbands, what are some things that if husbands were to listen to this as they also prepare to be there for their wives, like what would be some things that you remember that were helpful on that lens?
So, like on the delivery day.
Yeah.
So I think like just them being there and like constantly trying to check up on you and see if you're okay. Yeah. And then also letting you rest.
Yeah.
Because I know some husbands, they kind of do their own thing, and like communicating with each other during that process is so important because it's scary for the mom, you know, and the husbands have no idea. And we don't expect them to understand, but to kind of have like, I don't know what the English word is for, like the nunchi, right? To have that and to know what your wife needs before she even tells you. I think that's like a number one thing, but that's so hard to ask, you know, because they can't read our minds. So Yeah, but to be with us and to just give that support, like what I remember with Jarek was like he watched the entire birth like from the front. Like I was like, why? Like that's disgusting. You know, I don't even want to look at it. But then he kept coming to my side and then he kept whispering in my ear, you got this. You know, he was just like championing me on, and then he's saying, I'm so proud of you. And like that kind of encouraged me to just keep going because I really wanted to give up during that 2-hour push. Because at one point I was like, I can't do this. But he was like, no, you got this. He's almost coming out. Like you got this. And then that's
I feel like him telling you how to push was like game changer.
Yeah.
Not from your head.
Yeah. He's like, it's because you're pushing from the upper. And I'm like, how do you know, Dr. Tong?
Yeah. Was it just Jarek with you guys?
Yes.
With you guys?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that for me. So Matt got both of us did not get any like leave type of stuff, and we can talk about that or not. But I was also working in the labor room because we weren't delivering, and I didn't want to tell my boss that I was at the hospital yet, so I just checked in because she that was a toxic work environment, so I was trying to do that. But since Matt was a resident, he went to his rotation that morning because I wasn't happening. So Rachel Koo, she was a nursing student in the med center at that time, so because I was allowed 2 visitors, but only 2 visitors, like it couldn't change, and my parents couldn't come here in time for my mom to be the second visitor. So Rachel actually was like free that day, which is like rare because she was nursing.
So sweet of her.
So she filmed it all. Thankfully she's a nursing student, so it wasn't like weird
like
for
traumatic
her.
For her.
But like as we look back on it, it was so true. Like what you were saying is like, since she was kind of looking on that end, like for me, what was helpful was like normally both of us are more like others thinking or like serving in that aspect, but like he was really by my side, and like I don't think he got a chance to enjoy Jadon until after I did even. And I think like looking at those videos, I was like, oh, like I don't think I realized that in the moment, but that helped me get the peace I needed, right? And so I think for the men to realize just like how much you have to, even if you're freaking out inside, like just be like fake it till you make it for
be
the
calm. Because if they're freaking out, I mean, it's like, okay, you're not the one giving birth anyways. So but at the same time, it's like so encouraging just to have that. I guess that's what marriage is, you know, having a spouse, you know, that's continuing to be with you through every single season step in your life, you know, and then it becomes a true testament whenever you're in that room together, right? And I don't know what else they would do, but I've seen like on YouTube, like dads would bring like their video games, like, you know, and stuff like that.
That's true.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, because they're waiting the whole time. But I think for me, Jarek knows like I wouldn't really be happy if he did that. So he kind of knew what my needs and wants were, and he was just so good. And I was like, this is why I married him. Like, he's so solid. Yeah.
Good job, Jarek.
I was so cringe.
Good job for telling her to get the epidural.
He's like, I know you.
Okay, so if we move on to when the epidural wears off, how was your body afterwards?
So I've never got hit by an 18-wheeler, but it feels like that.
Yeah.
It feels like you got in a really big car accident and then you're just trying to heal.
Yeah.
You know, it's so painful. And I like when I talk to my friends who don't have kids, they ask me about it. I tell them 100% it hurts. Yeah. I think postpartum recovery is worse. Well, for me, it was worse than the actual delivery. Yeah, I had a 2nd-degree tear and I couldn't sit. And that's so painful. So you're like caring for a newborn and you can't do basic things, you know, with your body. It's so tough.
And like, okay, I'll only say blood once, but there's just like so much of that coming out. You're like, what the heck? Why is it like, and we've had periods and stuff, but it's just like, oh my gosh, what the heck?
It's like another level, you know, and then you have to like be careful and watch if you're bleeding too much. It's like you're bleeding a lot, but then like how do you know that you're bleeding too much, you know? And it's just like you get kind of for me, I had a little bit of anxiety because I was in so much pain and I just didn't want to get worse, and I felt so horrible that I just was like kept thinking, oh, like this is, what if like something bad happens because of this, you know? And I did not enjoy that. That part of the whole process.
Because then the baby's crying right next to you too, right. And then you have to, and then you're breastfeeding.
Oh my god, that's another story.
Yeah, like so they put the baby on you, in the delivery room, right? For me, that was, we're like, oh, okay, let's have him try to like breastfeed. And so I was like, okay, like, and I was like all high off of just like joy or whatever. And he's like breastfeeding or feeding. And I was like, oh, this is so magical. But apparently he wasn't getting anything. And like, it was just like, he was sucking on the nipple. And like, I thought it was like working so easily. But what he did was he actually tore my nipple already because he wasn't getting it. Anyway, so then it like just started, like,
so
breastfeeding was the worst.
Like everything hurts in your body.
Yeah. So I think we had to start doing formula supplements at the hospital because I think that's when my colostrum hadn't kicked in, the initial breast stuff. And then that journey was probably very difficult for me. So when did you guys, from delivery until leaving the hospital, were there any reflections on those 2 to whatever days that you guys were there? How was Levi and everything? We had like a jaundice scare, so we actually stayed for 3 days. I know that's common in Asian babies. So I didn't know if you... Okay. Yeah. So anything you wanted to share on that end?
Honestly, like being at the hospital felt like I was at a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone checks up on you, but it's kind of annoying too because you're trying to rest and they keep coming in. But then once I think there was just one night where I was in pain and then Levi started crying and then I looked at him and I was like, what do I do? Yeah. Do I pick him up? Or, you know, so I picked him up and then patted him down and then put him back down and he fell asleep. And I just kept staring at him. Like, it was just like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like when you stare at your child when they're sleeping, it's like the best feeling, right? And I was like staring at him and that's when it clicked on me, like, wow, this is my son. This is my child. And I don't know if I was scared in that moment, but at the same time, I was like, this is a new thing for me, you know? And I think that's when I realized like my new life had begun. Yeah. And like Jarek was sleeping. It was like late. Like, I don't even remember what time it was, like maybe 2-3 in the morning. And then like at the hospital, it seems like the babies, like for me, Levi didn't cry that much at the hospital. Like he was like very chill, just like slept. But then once we got home, it was like, whoa, what happened to the baby I knew yesterday? You know?
Where'd that peaceful moment go? Like, that's my son.
And then usually like if something happens, the nurses will come in and they're so good at just taking care of the babies. And so it was like nice. But then when you come home, it's just you, baby, and daddy, and that's it, right? And so I think that's one of the reflections I had was just like, this is my new identity. Like this is a new season and there's no turning back. Like he can't go back in me, right? Like I can't return him. And so I think it hit me pretty hard that night. Realizing that, that moment.
I think I was not happy at all that he got the jaundice scare, but that made us stay another day. I was so great. Well, because like keep in mind, right? This is during the pandemic, the start, where we're like, what's happening in this world? Like something is happening that's like really scary. We were allowed to have guests, now we're not. Just like things like that, we're starting to be scared. People are dying, and I was like, I was really full of anxiety. I think in general, right, we get a wave of anxiety, but it was like also masked with the pandemic anxiety. And so just like knowing we could stay one more day was like this really like grateful thing. But he was also not. I think I like didn't research him. I thought they take the babies to like a different room. I for some reason I thought that. I didn't know that they stayed with you the whole time, like from birth. For some reason,
we saw it on we see it on TV like that, right?
And so I was like, wait, what? Like they're coming right? And not that I wasn't against it, but I was like, I really need some rest because like we were overnight for the delivery, and I was like, I really would like some sleep. And I think like for Matt, like he was so like steady and present, but then I think when it's like done the delivery, they're also like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, you know. And he like was tired too, so like when the baby would cry, I'm like, I can't move, my body hurts, but Matt's also really tired. And I was like, why is the baby in here? I thought in the movies like they take care of them or something.
Actually, someone should address that because that is true, right?
Yeah.
Because I think in Korea too, they take the... I don't know.
I remember being really shocked. And obviously, like, it wasn't a bad thing. Like, as a mom, you're like, oh yeah, I get to be with my child from the start. Yeah. But in my mind, I, for some reason, just expected that. And so... just newsflash, in America at least, it's not that way. So
TV's all fake.
Seriously, all of that. That was interesting. I think it would have been nice to have had like another, like in hindsight, I do hope that like it doesn't have to be 2 of the same people visiting or something like that, where it would be helpful for Matt, I think, to have like an extra person because I think I would need an extra person, which is Matt. But I think if like it's like a mom or like a family member, not necessarily like a stranger,
right?
It could be helpful. So that's something I do hope would also be allowed. I don't know any of that right now.
In the upcoming delivery. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then with that, so some things I wanted to like share for people who are expecting is like, I remember, so recovery when you get home, some things that were really helpful, and this is kind of like for your down there healing, is like, so for the recovery part, some things that were really helpful is dermoplast, which is that's the thing. Oh, the spray.
Yeah.
So that's like,
I love that spray.
After you pee, you spray that stuff or poop or what, like, which it's so hard to poop. You have to take like pills to poop to make sure like it comes out nicely.
That's like number 2 delivery.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. And so dermoplast, and then no. It goes to, you pee, then you peri-bottle. You like bottle. Rinse it out with water. Yeah. And then I think the dermoplast is kind of like to like cool it off.
Yes.
And then you can get Tux. Those Tux
I love
pads,
Tux.
and then you put that like on your underwear, like or the nursing,
the thick pad.
like you're bigger than your period pads, but like those pads, and so then that's like how it kind of like can relax until the next time you have to go and stuff like that. So that's a helpful kind of like step by step of what that recovery part looks like. And then every day you should be doing like a few sits baths, where you sit on like really warm water and like kind of let your stuff also like get better.
Yeah.
So I think those things were like very like, I did not expect any of that stuff. And so and you don't have to like sneak it in. You know, you can obviously just say, can I have more of this, please? And just like pack it in front of their faces. But even still, like there was like this kind of fun and just like sneaking all the hospital stuff.
we like snuck in like the mats and everything. Yeah. And I was like, just take it. We might need it.
How long did your recovery period physically actually take?
You know, someone asked me this last week and I told them it was like 6 weeks.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was like, that sounds so long.
Yeah, my friend had said like 4.
Yeah.
So I was like mad that I was at 6. I was like, you told me 4. Why am I at 6?
But it depends, I guess, on obviously like your tears and all of that. But I feel like it was a really long time. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like the actual part where it was delivering was like short in the sense of like, so the tear also seems like very like in that way, because I also had the bigger grade tears and I was mad because it was like me trying to be too fast. But based on your tear grades could be how much longer it is.
It could be, because I know C-section moms, it takes them like I think like 6 to maybe even longer, 8 weeks or something, right?
I interviewed Grace, a friend of mine who did C-section, and hers took 10 weeks. And I think it's the longer end of the C-section side, but it was a very long time. Yeah. So just kind of like to know that you love this child, you're in love with everything about this identity at this time and like wanting to love and protect them, but there is going to be frustration because like your body is really limited and you're figuring out breastfeeding, you're figuring out other things, and then you're feeling stuff come out of your boobs and you're down there because you're still healing, but then you forget about it, because right now I think about it and it doesn't scare me, but it's gonna happen again.
I mean, even like if I would ask my mom about anything, right? Like birth, whatever. Yeah. She doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you? It's like so painful. It's such a kind of like almost traumatizing, but I guess it's because you go through that experience and it's part of human life. Yeah. And it's just crazy how resilient and awesome our bodies are.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like with my mom would be like, you guys were all good sleepers, you guys were all good eaters.
No
I was like,
way.
I guarantee you we were not.
There's no way.
But that's all you remember. And I'm like, I need to write down how bad of a sleeper Jadon was. Like, and not to like tell him later, he can't help it, that's just him developing, but just because it's like it was not all butterflies and sunshine and whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess going past the story and the healing, what was the hardest transition for you as you, like you said, you saw Levi, you're like, this is my son, this is my new identity. And with new identities comes, what does that look like? And so what was difficult?
Definitely managing my emotions, like regulating that. Because first of all, your hormones are out of whack during that period. But then even after you're done with postpartum, the emotions are still like it's just crazy. And you're still tired. You're still figuring out like what triggers you, what, you know, it's just like a crazy time. And I think for me, like my emotions sometimes got to me, and maybe it was harder because we didn't have like a lot of help outside. Like my mom lives 3 minutes from us, but she was so scared because of the pandemic, the COVID, that she didn't come by. Like they would just drop off food at the door, see him from the door. Yeah. And then they would go back home. And so it killed them to not be able to hold their grandson. And then it killed me because I didn't have that extra support. And I think I was just like so overwhelmed during that period. Yeah. I don't know how us pandemic moms did it.
Yeah.
There had to be some kind of grace over us. But I didn't really enjoy it because I'm like you, I'm such a family person.
Yeah.
And so obviously I wanted my mom to come and like take care of me and then take care of, you know, Levi and hold him and stuff. And they didn't get to hold him till like after maybe 2 months, 3 months. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's how scared they were. And if they visited us, they would wear like mask and gloves. Like that's how scared they were.
Scared for Levi.
Yes, because they didn't want to get him sick. And first of all, he's the first grandson, right? And so, and then even Jarek's mom was like, she was like, I want to hold him, but I don't want to risk it. It was like kind of that. And this is when we didn't have much education or knowledge about COVID. We were a little bit extreme in that. I felt like I would have been fine if they just did it, but then they weren't okay.
Yeah.
And I think the older generation was a little bit like, because it was affecting their age, you know, and stuff like that. So that was a really tough part for me, navigating motherhood with Levi. And yeah, I can't really remember much after that, but I just know that it was all emotion, like emotional roller coaster for me during those like first 6 months or so. Yeah. 4. Yeah.
Are you naturally an emotional person, or was this like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to handle all these?
I think after I became a mom, I became more emotional. But before that, I think I am more of I think with my emotions rather than with my like head. Yeah, I'm more of like a heart person. And so when you mix the crazy hormones along with postpartum and all of that, you know, anxiety about COVID, I think it just kind of made me more overwhelmed. So there were times where I would sit in our backyard in the sun and just soak. And that helped me a lot, you know, instead of being cooped up in the house. Because during the time, like we couldn't go anywhere, right? And especially when you have a newborn, like you don't really want to take him out during COVID. So we were stuck at home like every single day, 24/7. Couldn't even go to church, couldn't even do any of the regular activities. And so I think it really affected me mentally during that time.
What about some good things you felt yourself transform into because of motherhood?
So because I didn't have my mom and the extra help, I saw that a side of me that was like, I can do it. You know, I'm strong enough to do it. And to push through all of that anxiety and to push through all of that hardship and difficulty and to really trust in myself, even though I don't know what the heck I am doing with this child. I think it showed me that I am brave and I'm courageous and I can do it. And I know there's a lot of people who don't have family helping out, right? You can do it. And I think you just have to believe in yourself and just push through it. But obviously, if you need the help, you gotta ask for the help. And I don't know, like I was thinking about this today, like on social media, everyone seems so put together, right? Like motherhood. And if you show any signs of weakness, people are gonna think you're a bad mom. That's all a lie. We're weak people, but there's grace, and there's also like there's like something in us that just comes out as mothers, and we gotta tap into that, you know, and trust in yourself to know that, you know, even though you don't think you know what you're doing, you can do it. You just gotta try. And then if you really can't do it, don't be scared to ask for help. You don't have to look perfect. You don't have to look like got it all down. You're a new mom. Ask for help. Yeah. And some women have that. Like they just don't want to ask for help because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. You shouldn't know what you're doing. It's you're a first time mom.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's true.
But then there's also that thing where you ask your mom and then they like, you know, lecture you or like tell you like, well, you should do A, B, and C. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. One of the things I wrote was that the hardest transition was like wanting to please, I guess, my mom more than my dad, because my mom's the one that really did it. Like back then, right? It was really just the moms. But then also like versus Matt who also had a lot of preferences for raising or like doing the early newborn stuff that were very different, like Eastern, Western kind of culture different. And rather than like you're saying, like for you, because you almost didn't have that, you were able to empower yourself. I think I was so busy, and as an Enneagram too, like very people pleasing or people centered, and so like that was a lot of my focus. And that's not like anyone's fault but my own, in the sense that they're just sharing what they want and I don't know what I want, and I just want to please everybody, but they're all like saying different things. And then like I think for me was like having to ask myself, well, what do you want? What is something that you feel is right? And like having to trust your own convictions, because you do feel that transformation of like mothers know what to do for their child the best. Like no matter what anyone else says, like you know the best for your child. And so I think having to like believe in myself is something I'm still working on, but definitely a process that did start then. And I think for me as well, like mental load was not a easy thing for me in terms of like how to make suddenly all these decisions for another human being. And so in general, I like to be the helper of like, oh, what do you want? Okay, let me make that happen. But like when you have to like kind of be the executive decision maker, it was like, oh my gosh, like what if this decision sucks or stuff? So like just like having to be okay with failure, I guess, but not like it's not a failure, but like having to be okay with that word, so that you can grow. Because I think some of the things I realized that I love problem solving, and so like every day I would think about what happened, and then like even with Jadon's sleep, it just always felt like something I was like, oh, I know how to do, like kind of like work with that. And so I agree with you. Before we go on to the second child, what are your 3 favorite memories from being Levi's mom?
Oh my gosh, I had to think long and hard because I literally
can't remember either.
Like I spent like literally 24/7 like every single day with him, and there's like I have like 14,000 pictures on my phone, right? And like all of those are like obviously memories. But I was like, okay, what are some things that like stick out to me? Well, number 1 was the one I shared earlier about staring, at him and feeling like this overwhelming love. And then, we took a trip last summer with my mom and my sisters, and so my side of the family, and with Levi and Jarek, and I absolutely love that trip because
like to some cabin or something.
We went to Broken Bow, Oklahoma.
I think I remember seeing that.
And I absolutely loved it. Like, it's hard to travel with a child, and so we were like, okay, let's just go to Oklahoma. It should be fine. He watched Cocomelon the entire way there and back, and we just had so much fun, just having family time and eating together, and then just seeing Levi bond with my parents. Like, it was so heartwarming to see that. And then this one is a really kind of a sad one, but one of my favorite memories that I remember is when he got his maybe first or second set of shots from when he was born. Like sometimes babies can get fevers, they don't feel good. He was crying so much when we got home, and I was kind of worried. I didn't know what to do. So I just laid on our couch in the living room in the dark, and he was just on top of me, and he slept on me for 3 hours, and I slept with him. And I was like, I just want him to feel comforted. And I don't know, for some reason that memory stood out to me when I was thinking about it. Maybe because it was a bonding moment, and to think that Levi felt safe and comforted, and that made me feel like, okay, like I'm protecting my cub, this is my baby. And I hate shots. I hate seeing them get the shots, but they got it. I don't know. It was just so sad, but I enjoy that moment with him,
I echo you in the sickness. Like last December, Jadon got like a stomach bug or something, and he threw up like so many times on the bed. I like went into the mode of like, we have this, and like we're gonna get over it together, because I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I think Matt was also freaking out, and later he was like, thanks for like keeping it cool for us, and like, and I think just like him in that state though, right, it's that comfort, it's that trust, it's that him like knowing right now like you're the one that he would go to for those things. But in general, just like seeing them develop and like grow and learn every day, and like see those light bulbs and their personalities.
Seriously, like they're so lucky, because like our phones are like, we can like literally record everything, take pictures, right, and they can go back and look at it. But then like us, like it's like the old school cameras, you know, we just have
we
like...
don't even have the VHS to put it in anymore. Like, if we have it, you have to, you know, like, there's no DVDs to, like, anymore.
Yeah. So I think it's like, it seems like every day is a memory, because like literally if they do something small, you're like, oh my gosh, like, it's so cute. They send it to everybody.
Okay, so now that we are both preparing for a second, which is kind of crazy that this time it's not a day apart, it's a month apart.
Yeah.
Hopefully, as long as both of ours goes smoothly, it'll stay a month apart.
Yeah.
But what are some things that have been the same or different with this pregnancy? I guess you can also talk about your first pregnancy by comparing it to the second.
Yeah. So first pregnancy, I feel like it was pretty easy for me. Like, I think it's because I was like legit working in a like office setting then. So I was like forced to like had to get up and move. But then obviously the morning sickness and nausea in the office was the worst because you also don't want to show your boss and coworkers that you're pregnant, right? Like you have to tell them.
Like the secret time.
Yeah, you have to tell them. It's so stupid and kind of messed up. So I was kind of like very, very active with my first pregnancy and just didn't have a problem. I was also pregnant during like the cold seasons, right? We were pregnant in cold seasons. Yes. So all we did was wear like oversized sweaters and stuff and like leggings. That. Yeah. But then this one is like, it's hot. Okay, like Texas is like over 100 degrees right now and it's like so annoying. And my first trimester compared to my last one was horrible. Like I had so much morning sickness and nausea and I legit was like, I think I'm having a girl.
Right, I was about to say maybe that was the sign.
And
even the doctors will be like, that's not true.
Yeah, no, but then it's so weird because when I found out, like I took the test for pregnancy and I found out, like even with Levi, like I had the instinct like this is a boy, this is a girl, and I was right both times. Yeah. So after this pregnancy, the third trimester I'm starting to feel the fatigue, the exhaustion. It's different, and I don't know if the heat has anything to do with it, or maybe navigating it with a toddler. Maybe that's why. It's definitely harder just because there is a toddler
who does not rest.
Yeah, who does not rest. And like from the morning, it's like he's like, hi, good morning, and then he's running around and I'm just like, can I just lay in bed? Like I'm like huge. And that's probably the biggest thing. It's just you're literally pregnant, raising a human inside you, and you're raising a human outside of you.
Yeah, so that's true.
That's another level.
Yeah, I would echo that since I was also in the office, also keeping a secret.
Yeah.
Also during the winter time. Like all these things. Cause like number one thing is like I just feel nasty all the time. I feel sweaty all the time.
Yeah.
Like and I just like my leggings or stuff because I don't have as many dresses, I guess.
Oh my God.
But now I just want to live in dresses. Because the leggings are so sticky and it's not the same as, but I don't want to buy more maternity clothes because I don't know if we want
it's like
another
a waste of money.
Yeah. But Matt would really, really like to be done after this. So I was like, if we were open to maybe trying for a third, then like
exactly what I said.
Then I would buy more stuff. But like it really would be a way. Anyway, so yeah, and then like shift over and now it's like I know there are pros to being able to be at home at this time as well, but at the same time, like being with a toddler and like you don't have time to even be tired when you have that major fatigue and like you're not sure if it's mom fatigue or pregnant fatigue or like all these different things.
I'm not gonna lie, today I had a rough morning with Levi. He threw like the biggest tantrum in the car for God knows what reason, and I got legit angry. And I don't like yelling. I don't want to. And I ended up yelling at him. And then I was like, this is the hormones. Like, and it happens. And so I just turned around and I was just like, I'm so sorry. You know, I still love you. I shouldn't have yelled at you, even when I'm angry. And then we came home. I was so tired from that I was like, Levi, mommy has to sleep. And so I laid on the bed and I don't even know what he was doing. Like he was watching Blippi and then playing with his
Blippi.
Oh gosh. Shout out to Blippi though.
Seriously,
you're MVP. But then he was like playing by himself and then I like opened my eyes after a little bit. I don't even know how long. And he was sleeping right next to me, you know? And I was like, thank you, Lord, you know, because it's rare, you know, because like they're demanding, you know, but he let me sleep today. So I was like,
oh, I should try that.
But I didn't realize like he was so independent and playing by himself until like I like
you have to also give
give them that space to be independent. Yeah.
Which is hard.
It's really hard. Because like when I was first trying to nap, he'd be like, mom. And I was like, Levi, please, I'm trying to sleep. Please, I'm really tired. 5 minutes. And then we ended up sleeping like 2 hours. Aww. Yeah. And I really needed it because I was tired. Like that, the pregnancy tiredness was really hitting me hard. So yeah, he's so sweet. I was like, wow, he let me sleep for 2 hours today. Yeah. But it's rare because like toddlers aren't like that.
I had like nausea, but I never had throwing up from morning sickness wise.
But nausea in itself.
Yeah. So I always feel like I have to like say it quietly since I know there's a lot of people that throw up a lot, but it still felt stuck all the time, you know?
Yeah.
But that's why I also was like, I'm having another boy.
Yeah.
But like for me, one of the scarier things for Jadon was scary because I spotted a lot first trimester, which is just like anxious as like a new mom. You're like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
It's bleeding, but you know, they're always like, it's okay. But then 13 or 14 weeks with Jadon, I was traveling to New York and I did a very easy hike. But after that, I had like blood gush.
Oh my gosh.
So if you have gush, it's supposed to, like, my doctor kept saying spotting is fine. If it's gush, then we're scared. And I was like, it's gush. And I started crying in the bathroom in like a brewery with my sister. And I was like freaking out. We had no cell service. And so we had to drive to like 30 minutes to the nearest ER and like get it checked. And thankfully everything was healthy. He was fine.
Wow.
So I was so confused. Like, what was that? In hindsight, it was like a nice moment because my mom and my sister got to see him on the ultrasound. And so I was really grateful for that. But that happened again for this kid in April, same time, like this time maybe like 13 weeks or after first trimester. And you're supposed to be like in the clear after that or whatever. I was in Dallas actually. Well, we were actually house shopping. It was actually in the house that we bought. Like she was talking about, our realtor was talking about some details in this house. And I was like, I love this house. And I was just like so happy. I was like, Matt, this is the one. It's way over our budget, but it's the one or whatever.
Right.
And then I felt like something come down, right?
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, this is not like, cause you know, you can have TMI, like discharge or stuff like that, that happened. And I went to the bathroom and I saw blood and I was like, oh my gosh, I started crying and I was like, it's happening again. But I think thankfully your second time around, you're not quick to jump to like the worst case scenario, I guess.
That's true.
And so we, same thing, had to go ER because we weren't at home again and they checked and everything was fine. But it's interesting how like the same timing of the same incident for both pregnancies happened for me. And then I also had like a diagnosis of something wrong with my umbilical cord for this one.
Wow.
But then at my 20 week, they like canceled it. But for 2 months, it was like very anxious. It was like this really like, you have a high risk pregnancy and it's not going to be good. Yeah. And so like freaking out, I was like, and so they're like, you're probably gonna have to have a C-section if it comes early. And I was like, I don't know, like me being just like, I thought I was gonna redeem my birth and not have tears because I'm gonna have like a longer, you know, like be careful with my vaginal stuff. But so I was just like mad. But anyway, so like I know you had also shared with your pregnancy like similar things in the sense of, I guess if you want to share, I don't know, like similarities and the differences between that, like your GD, is it GD?
Yeah, so I have gestational diabetes and I had it with Levi and I got diagnosed again a week and a half ago. So basically I just have to watch my diet and make sure I'm not eating like the pregnancy craving stuff.
That's hard.
It's really hard.
Especially when you, not saying it would be easier one way or the other, but when you do have a toddler, you don't have time to create the healthy foods.
Right.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know either.
There's no time in the day to eat healthy.
But like my personality is like I still cook dinner and I make meals and stuff and I eat naturally. I kind of eat healthy or healthier than
so you can't have
average. Yeah, so I can't have like white rice. Yeah, so anything that's like flour, like gluten, like all of that, you can have it in moderation, but it's recommended not. So you have to switch it up for like, you know, the brown rice, the wheat bread. Like,
so do Levi and Jarek also eat healthy now?
No, I make them separate stuff. Yeah, isn't that nice for them?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, because Jarek, he loves his white rice. Yeah, it's so unhealthy for him. But I'm not that mean to be like, you have to eat with me. So that's been kind of tough too, because like the first time I remember crying about it, and one thing is a lot of women think it's their fault for getting it. It's not. Yeah, it's just so many factors that go into it, and you can have it for one pregnancy and not the other. I just kind of knew I was gonna have it with the second one. And so when I got the like you have it, I was like, great, like this sucks, because I have to do the not insulin, but I have to prick my finger, check my blood, like it's like that, like you're literally a diabetic patient. And so if you're not careful, then, you know, it can go like the placenta gets involved in it, the baby's health gets involved in it. And then they even have to check the baby's sugar levels after birth. Like, and then your baby can also develop diabetes too growing up. And so it's like a lot of things you have to be careful about, but because you know you have a living child inside of you, you're willing to do it.
You are diligent about it.
Yeah, you have to.
It's not like you're just going on a diet for yourself.
Yeah, but sometimes I hope my doctor doesn't listen to this podcast because
I know her name. I'm going to send it to her.
So like she would be like, okay, Janice, you know, work on your numbers a little bit. And I'd be like, okay. And then right after I go eat jjajangmyeon. And I'm like, it's okay. It's like, you know, once in a while, it's okay. But you have to be very diligent with this when you're diagnosed with GD. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's helpful because since there are these potential scares and people do have those like, oh, what about this? What about that? Like for GD, if someone has that, like, you know, one, they're at ease knowing it's not their fault. And that's good that you preface that, but also just letting people know what are some of the things that are there and that we still consider a good pregnancy overall, right? Compared to other people who have a lot of other things as well. So
yeah.
Are there things you are anxious about for the second child?
Oh, there's so many things I'm anxious about.
Yeah, that's a very stupid, not a stupid question. Are there things? No,
it's not. Because
how many things are you anxious about?
How many things?
Can we say all of them?
Well, number one, I think is like navigating between going from 1 to 2 kid. Yep. It's like, am I able to love Levi?
Yeah.
Right? And like I asked I asked seasoned moms that question. They're like, you can. They're like, it's a different love and you'll give fully to both. But I mean, we only have one child, so we only know what it's like. And then to add another, it's like, I don't want to like make him feel jealous or, you know, like feel like he doesn't have enough attention. And so I saw this YouTube vlog. It's Judy's life. It's family. They have like 5 girls.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They just had like their 5th or 6th child. I don't remember, but they're all girls. And the dad actually shared something about this. And he said, the toughest part is obviously balancing everything in life, but to also have that one-on-one time with each kid. And that's what I realized, like, oh, I just need to be intentional to spend one-on-one time with Levi, also my husband, and this newborn. But then you think about that and you're like, oh my gosh, how?
I can barely do that with one child and one husband.
Exactly. And so that's one of my anxieties. And the second one is just, I think, like from having a boy to a girl.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because you think about when the girls are older, I don't want to be too like old fashioned, but like I've seen what girls have done in my past and I'm just like, like I hope she's like a good kid, right? Or like makes the right decision. But you can say it with anything with a boy and a girl. But for girls, like, I don't know, like I just feel Jarek's gonna have a hard time with the girl.
His heart is gonna get wrecked.
Yes. And so I have like kind of a little bit anxiety in that, and then just also the balancing aspect of it. We're already so busy right now. How are we gonna add another child to this? And then, you know, the everyday like finances, like inflation, and then like we're sending Levi to daycare or pre-K for 2 days a week starting August, and that's just another cost, right? And it's just, to be real, like kids are expensive. And now we're adding another one. It's like, Lord, please provide, you know. And I don't want to say I have anxiety in that, but I do have a little bit of that back like worry, like, will we be okay, or like what are we gonna do? So
but you work too. When do you
my work is so flexible.
Okay.
So I work for a nonprofit, and just like you, like we both work nonprofit, but basically,
oh my gosh, Janice, like it's the same. Okay.
Are you me? Am I you?
And our husbands are Enneagram 9s.
And they're not fully Korean either. Whoa.
But Jarek is probably more Korean.
Jarek knows like the randomest Korean words. Like, anyways, so I just have to get like
deadline
things done. And if I get them done, I get them done. But my nonprofit, we are humanitarian aid medical nonprofit for North Korea. So North Korea is closed. So there's not much going on. Other than just like making like creating awareness and I guess like the fundraising, all of that. I quit 7-Eleven because during the pandemic and they were trying to get me back in, and I was like, I don't want to risk anything with my newborn, with COVID, and they were just like another toxic situation. I feel like we can do like a separate podcast on this, right?
Yeah,
like,
can we just make this the Janice and I show now?
But it's like, it was horrible, and I quit on them. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. Like my family, my baby's more important than you guys. And then like a couple months later, like I got connected to this nonprofit, and then so it's enough for like groceries and stuff. So why not? And it's a good purpose, because at the time I was praying, I was like, Lord, I literally am just staying at home with a newborn. I feel like I'm not really serving you, because we weren't going to church at that time. And I prayed, I was like, Lord, help me to serve you in my house. And then he brought this nonprofit to me, and it's like amazing people, amazing purpose. And that's when I was like, maybe this is the reason why I had to quit 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I think in general, it's not that these kids don't bring us such great purpose, right? But I struggle with that a lot, is when I had to quit because of all of the stuff that was happening, and like wanting to seek a purpose that, not that it's greater than my child, but something that I know is like a calling of me and my identity, not just my identity as a mom. So even just hearing you get connected in that way after leaving the toxic space is like a huge praise report. So that's really cool.
And I cannot be grateful enough, because I shouldn't have name dropped my company, but the department I was in, they weren't really, they were great to me during my pregnancy and everything. I really appreciated that. But the way they kind of manage and handle things, I think in any corporate setting, if they don't have like their values and stuff on point, principles, it brings more stress to you and your family. And you have to kind of choose, my family or is it work? You know, and obviously I'm going to choose my child. So I have no regrets. Sometimes I miss the corporate life, you know, but the first 3 years of spending time with Levi is so special and sacred that I don't have any regrets. But then I also am I like honor a lot of moms who do work. And have their kids, you know, go to daycare, whatever. Like that's hard in itself. And like they're doing two things, you know. So it's just hard being a woman.
I know. We're gonna start Jadon in like a real, because he does like a ajumma home, and like I love it so much. It's like a family and stuff like that. And in Dallas, in McKinney area, we don't have that option, and so we're doing a daycare type thing. And I think I keep thinking about September and like sending him there and like grieving it. Like there is the financial part where I'm like, okay, I know Matt's the doctor, he's gonna make a lot of money soon, guys, okay, but right now we're still in a lot of debt, and we got a house, which we're very grateful for, but you know, like a lot of financial anxiety. But aside from that, it's like thinking that starting September, like I won't have like that same time. And we're doing September so he doesn't feel replaced, right? Because if we started in October, he could feel like, oh, it's because of a child. Like it's because of this.
And it gives him time to adjust.
Right. Because he could get sick, he could not like it. I don't even know. But yeah, in that sense, just like thinking about like every time I have these like precious moments with him, I also like get really sad. Because I'm like,
exactly.
It's like, this is my last, I only have a few more. I'm getting like, you know, but like you then like, and like I just feel like both of us have such like, and every mom does, right? But like I do, like we have such a special bond with our sons. And so it's just like thinking about that transition, and like we're their whole world. And then just like naturally, they're not that they're gonna detach, but they're gonna see this other kid, and like I'm so worried about that. Like that. So when our number one worry is not yet for the child in our womb yet, but it really is for like our firstborn love, and we're gonna love the second one just as much. But I don't know that yet, you know. Like, and even the attention we had for, I still talk to my child like in the womb, but it's like different from the attention I could do for Jadon when he was in the womb. So even sometimes I'm like, oh, but then I'm not loving this child enough. I don't know. Anyways,
oh man, the anxiety needs to go away.
But I never felt like unloved from my parents who had three. You guys had three girls,
I have two sisters. So I don't know, I can't speak for my sisters, but I feel like I was pretty loved by my mom at least. But I still do feel loved by my mom, but I don't know, but you don't really remember. Right.
So I know in hindsight it's like not a big deal,
but then because you're like, it's like your son, you know.
Oh, but you're having having a daughter.
I told Jarek, I was like, Jarek, do not forget about Levi, because Jarek has always wanted a daughter, and he's
from 2 sons, right?
1 son, but then his whole side of the family, they're mostly guys. Yeah. Okay. And so everyone was like super excited, and then my family was all excited about having a boy.
Yeah, because you guys are
yeah. But then I tell Jarek, I'm like, do not forget about Levi. He's like, I'm not going to, and I'm like, I'm watching you. You better not forget about him. Yeah.
What are top 3 reflections on motherhood thus far?
Oh my gosh, I think the biggest one is like, when you become a mom, you kind of wonder why you are the way you are.
Yeah.
And it all comes down, like, it's rooted in your childhood, right? And so you're navigating motherhood, but also trying to get healing from your past trauma and hurt. Yeah. And you're like, oh, so this is the reason why I'm like this, right? Like today, why did I get so angry, right? But obviously, like, if you're overwhelmed and emotions are high, you're going to get angry and stuff. But it's like, why is my first thought to yell? Right? Or why is my first thought to be self-pity? And like, like all that kind of stuff. I think like my reflection on that was, I need to work on myself more.
Yes.
A lot of moms naturally get the mom guilt, and they feel like, oh, I'm not gonna, spend time for myself or do something that makes me feel good or healed, whatever. You got to do it. You got to make the time, figure out how you can get that healing that you need, therapy or speaking to a friend or sharing with your husband, whatever it is. You got to let it out, because if you're not healthy mentally and in your heart, you're not going to be a healthy parent. And then that also produces unhealthy children.
Yeah.
Right?
If you think you might be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, BetterHelp, the sponsor of this episode, is here for you. BetterHelp offers a broad range of over 20,000 licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Plus, you can get 10% off your first month with my code, betterhelp.com/Kohler. With BetterHelp, you can talk to your therapist in a private online environment at your convenience, and all you have to do is fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs before getting matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Then you schedule secure video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. As a mom constantly working around Jadon's toddler schedule, having my weekly therapy online has been a complete game changer and a huge reason why I have made big steps to better my mental health for myself and for my family. You can also request a new therapist anytime at no additional charge. Join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Don't forget to use my code to get that 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kohler. That's better, HELP.com/Kohler.
Not to bring shade to my parents. They're immigrants. They had a hard life, still kind of do. And I think a lot of ways that they dealt with things kind of just came onto me. So I had to kind of grow up faster and become like a parent and take responsibility for myself. And so I think all of that started coming up, as I was raising Levi. And Levi's only 2. Yeah. So can you imagine when they become like teenagers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a good point you made. It's not about like mom guilt itself, right? Like when people are like, oh, I don't feel good spending this much money on me or whatever. I get like a difference. Like self-care is still important, but like I think the key word you're using is healing, right? Yeah. And like, especially when we come from intergenerational families, like it's just so important to break certain cycles. And even if they're like subtle, they weren't intentional or things like that, like to meet those now or even before you have kids, because that's even a better time.
I also think it's kind of important to sit down and talk with your spouse before you deliver, right? And be like, this is how I was raised, this is how I was punished and disciplined, because it will bite you in the butt when you like your child is acting out and then you see the mom and dad have 2 different, ways of disciplining or whatever, and you butt heads in that moment, it can strain your relationship too. So I think like talking about that or any past trauma, you have with your own family, like you bring it up so that you can prevent the same cycles of happening. Right. I'm seeing that a lot in families, like generationally, like there's the same cycles, the same things happening over and over again, but then you have to be the person to stop it, right? You gotta stand in the line and say, no, that's not happening for my children and their children. So having that conversation with your spouse, I think, is incredibly important.
Were you able to have that before Levi with Jarek, or kind of throughout?
Yeah, because and you don't really think about it, right?
You don't realize you have all this stuff to deal with.
You're just like excited you're having your first child, but then you don't really talk about like discipline and like, you know, because I didn't know Levi was gonna be like this crazy, right? This crazy toddler
who touches his boob.
Oh yeah. Before Unji came, Levi pooped his pants and kind of dug his hands in there, brought it to me, and I was like, no. That's toddler life. They do crazy stuff. So yeah, we didn't talk about it, but we actually had a fight like a month. We never fight.
You and Jarek seem like happily ever after forever and ever.
Never fight, and we're always like good. But then after having a kid, we started butting heads a little bit. I remember Levi was throwing this biggest tantrum. Jarek got impatient, and he's usually like very patient. So he was like fed up, and he was like, go to your room. And I was
Did he go to his room?
No, he was like screaming. I was like, he's not gonna listen to you.
Whoa, obedient.
That would be amazing. But then I said, I got mad at Jarek. I was like, no, I'm gonna wait until he calms down. I remember this conversation so clearly. I was like, you don't even like read or like look this stuff up. I'm always looking at it. And then he's like, well, you look like you don't know what you're doing. He walked out. He's never said stuff like that to me. And I was like, I looked at him and I was like, like, you want to start this right now? So he walked out. We both calmed down, and then we came back and we talked about it and we apologized. And I told him like, I shouldn't have gotten mad at you because I didn't explain to you the game plan. I didn't communicate it. And then he was like, I shouldn't have said that to you. I was just angry in the moment. Like we saw like a different side of each other that day. And I was like, oh my gosh, who's this man I married? Not being dramatic. Yeah.
That's funny because I always say that you don't even look at anything. Because
you're constantly
I'm always scrolling
Instagram.
Crap. Yeah, I'm like, and I have this plan. But yeah, the communication part is something that we also did not practice growing up. You know, like that's really, and like no shade to parents on that either. It's just like, that's so hard to have those.
It was like you do something bad, the makdagi came out, you know, like the like grab a wooden spoon.
Seriously,
but there was no like conversation or like, you know,
okay, hug each other. All right, done by like no resolution,
right?
But there was the okay, it's over now. Let's go back. I think that's a good point if you can to kind of like talk about those, because I know for us, like I grew up with getting spanked and I don't think I resented it, although I do think it can harm some kids, right? But it didn't harm me, I guess. I was also a pretty good kid, and I also thought it was fun, like because if we got in trouble we would get spanked, but sometimes we would also have to sondra, like raise our hands. I just thought it was fun to get to do that with my brother and sister, because we always had to do it, all of us, if one person was
That's
bad.
So cute.
And so for me it was like a social thing,
right?
But like I wonder, I should ask my brother and sister how they felt about getting
they
spanked.
might have a different perspective.
And my brother's the boy, so he could have gotten spanked more or things like that. But Matt is 100% against spanking. And for like, he never experienced it himself, and like his friends probably, because he culturally didn't grow up around like Koreans who everyone was getting spanked. So it was really hard for me to understand that, because my parents did display it well in the sense of like, or they tried to, where like they tried to express the love after the spanking and like kind of share Christ's love through it too as best they could. And I think I got the gist of it, but I don't know if the rest of us picked it up. That was something Matt and I did have to talk about, right? Because for me, I was like, I'm gonna bring that into my family, like, because like no, and then he's a psychiatrist, so like it was like,
oh, so it's even worse. How are you married to a psychiatrist?
I know, and I sometimes when we have fights, I'm like, you're a psychiatrist. How do you not like? How do you not know my med? Anyways, but that's thank you, Matt. But yeah, so that's helpful. As we go into preparing for the second child, what are some things that like traumatized you about the first that's making you create boundaries for the second? for example, for me, like I'm going to buy a snoo. I'm going to not let him co-sleep with me ever because like it just like for us losing sleep was like the number one thing. Like we did not consistently sleep train because of like COVID and moving around to different places to get help when we were both working. But I think like that's like this huge boundary for the second child, and I don't want to like not love him and like use my intuition and feeling over like this boundary, but I am super like, okay, I'm just gonna cuddle Jadon for the rest of my life, and then like the second child's gonna be so sleep trained and like obviously like
let me know how that goes.
I'll let you know. But yeah, and then I think the other thing is right, like having conversations with Matt beforehand, with my mom beforehand, being grateful for the help from in-laws and parents and emos and everybody, but also making sure I know what I want, because I think that's really hard as a people pleaser, is how to be firm in who I am first as the mom. Obviously Matt's my partner in crime with all of this. One of the things with him is he never told me some of these preferences he had for Jadon until he was born, which makes sense because we didn't have a space to talk. But now it's like, let's be on the same page beforehand, because after delivery, when I'm recovering and then there's another baby and then there's a toddler, like I don't have time to be like, oh, you wanted this to happen, you know? So having those conversations, like you said, whether it's for trauma things or just like logistical planning, is so important, so that more fights or more conflicts or hurt feelings on anybody's end doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's so true. Like boundaries. When you asked me this question, I was like, what kind of boundaries? But then like you, I'm also a people pleaser, and I kind of let other people's opinions, you know, like I get like, if I'm very indecisive. So if I hear someone say one thing, I'm like, oh, maybe. And then someone says no, I'm like, oh yeah. And then, you know, so I can't make decisions for myself. And so I think I need to put a boundary on that. I need to trust in my instinct, know what I want, and do it regardless of what my mom says, my mother-in-law says. Sorry, I love you guys. And and like anybody, you know, even on Instagram, there's like so many experts on Instagram.
My gosh. Or even like peer moms. But anyways.
Well, I actually had
we talk offline.
Well, I had one dad tell me this one advice that I actually appreciated, and he was like, don't Google everything. And I was like, but I need to. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I see what he means. And I think just when you're trying to look for answers and stuff like that, like just find one person you really trust and ask them. But you don't need to ask like your mom, your mother-in-law, you know, everyone. But hopefully with the second child, like I'll be a little bit more experienced and know what I'm doing. And one thing I talked about with Jared last night, we were talking about boundaries, and with that is like comparison. I actually wrote this down. I was like, this is so good. I was like, comparison will steal joy from truly enjoying parenthood. Right? Again, social media does not help with that. And it's like the whole thing like, oh, your child sleeps through the night. How come my child doesn't? Oh, your child eats his veggies. Levi does not eat veggies.
Oh, okay, good to know, because I was seeing your stories and like Levi eats by himself and just eats all the spinach and broccoli on his tray. And
there's no spinach, broccoli
sleeps
in the
until
picture.
9 p.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever. See, exactly. We only see we don't see the full
good
picture.
Moments. And so you cannot compare. Every child is different. You know, like if your child wants to sleep at 10 p.m., just let him sleep at 10 p.m. Okay. I think Jarek was at playing basketball, and then people were asking what time does Levi sleep, and Levi sleeps at 9 p.m.
Same.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to sleep early. And also I like going out to have dinner, and I want Levi to be there, and sleeping at 7 p.m. is not going to help anyone, right? If it works for you, great. But for us, it works out. You know, and you have to be okay with whatever works out for you, works out for you. Whatever works out for them, works out for them. Everyone's different. And I think living in America, everyone wants to kind of go the same path, you know, and there's
still be individualized.
And then like be structured, and like there's like a ABC, like those posts about like how to put your child to sleep. Okay, it's not gonna work. Okay, really, it just depends on your child and his temperament, right? And so I'm just gonna stop comparing. Like I already know my second one's gonna be a wild child. Like, you know, like
sometimes the second one is really calm if the first one is.
That's what I'm praying for right now. Like the first one, like I love you, Levi, but oh my gosh, like
he's fast though.
He's fast.
We are in a soccer league, and I was impressed. Levi was the fastest one on the one time I came to the when we visited.
Yeah,
I was like, dang, Levi, yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know. We'll see how the second one turns out, but I'm not gonna compare them two or with other kids. So I'm gonna put a boundary on myself. And maybe I need to stop doing social media. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
have more discipline.
Talk to myself about that.
It's just so hard,
Yeah,
that's gonna be our future. So
yeah,
but we just have to discipline ourselves on that.
Yeah, agree. Wow, this is flowing so well. Okay. You could think of mother and a fruit. What would it be?
Me and Jarek were thinking about this last night. And Jarek actually brought this up. And I think it goes for parenthood. Yeah. And I was surprised because he's not a deep thinker. So I was very surprised. But he said it's like a watermelon. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said that some watermelons have a lot of seeds, right? And so you're eating the watermelon, you're enjoying it. And if you eat the seeds, you spit it out. But like the seeds are like the hardships, the challenges. You still enjoy the watermelon regardless of the seeds, and that's what parenthood is, motherhood is. You will enjoy it, and there will be a bunch of seeds you got to spit out, but you're gonna still finish it. Yeah. And when he said that to me, I was like, who are you?
Preach, Jerk.
Like parenthood changed you.
I think motherhood is just like the greatest gift, but it's tiring.
I
don't know like what a sleepy fruit would be, like a delicious sleepy fruit.
Oh no,
that doesn't make any sense. Watermelon also like is very good in terms of like it's a good visual of birth. It's a good, and then all the sweet stuff. Yeah, but that's a good
he
one.
Also brought up He also brought up durian, and he was like, sometimes like it's like ugly on the outside, and it can smell.
So I have another guest that I just released today who had the C-section, but she said durian.
Really?
Yeah. So same page, Jarek.
I've never had durian.
I haven't either.
So I don't know, but I know it smells. Like I smelled it before.
Yeah, when she said, I was confused because it's a smelly fruit, right? But it's really sweet.
Yeah.
And then there's like durian mochi stuff or some stuff like that.
I guess, but I don't know if I want to try a smelly fruit.
Where did he have it?
He never had it either, but you just know about it.
Oh, you just know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's why I told him, I was like, we can't use that because you never had it before. And he's like, okay, watermelon.
Well, you're going to be due in
September 24th.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 months. Yeah.
And I'm due October 15th. So let's keep it a month apart. Okay. And then I will be calling you for help because you're going to be a few weeks ahead of me. So
dude, like next year we're going to have to like come back to this.
I know, revisit two. But we'll see if we're both pregnant again.
Oh my gosh.
If our husbands are listening, they're like, what is happening? I would love to have you on also, just like a side note. I think your personal story is also one I would love to hear someday.
Really?
Yeah, I think I've always been interested, but I've never we've never gotten to talk about it. And obviously there are things that connect us first. But that would be cool too. Janice is an Enneagram 6, by the way.
Yes.
In case anyone was curious. And I kind of like see hints of it as we were talking.
The anxiety.
Or like even like for Enneagram 6s, you guys have the inner committee kind of thing. And I think like when you're sharing something else, like, oh, that like makes sense towards that part of it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and anxiety. But seems like you've tackled it, which is
I think so.
Awareness of it.
I think I became better after having Levi. Like of course I had a lot, but then you have to work through it.
Yeah.
It's hard to be an anxious parent, you know? And so I still have those thoughts, like naturally negative. I'm still working on it, but we're not perfect. Like, we're working towards,
Thank you for joining me for this conversation and sharing some positive experiences overall of motherhood. And see you on this other side at 3 a.m. when we are struggling with baby number 2. Thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Kohler Commentary. Bye. I had so much fun having Ajumma talk with Janice today. As we reflected on the past and looked toward the future to prepare for baby number 2, it was so refreshing to listen to another mom and empathize in our shared sentiments. As we expect the transition to 2 kids soon, I have personally felt a heightened anxiety since we just moved to a new city without any family nearby for the foreseeable future. But like Janice said, you can do it. I can do it. Although it's going to be hard AF, I'm taking this time to mentally put in the work and speak life into myself to empower the belief that I alone am a boss mom.
For all you out there preparing for a big transition ahead, know that you are fully equipped with the strength from within. But also don't forget to check in with loved ones and seek help from your community when possible. I hope that listening to this organic conversation helped ease your own worries as you prepare for a growing family, or maybe a different life adjustment ahead. Or maybe it was simply fun to listen to two heavy-breathing pregnant mamas babble about random mom stuff. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate it 5 stars and subscribe so you never have to miss another. Go to @ColorCommentary to comment your key takeaways and share what you want to hear about next. I would love to hear more from you on the topics you want to listen to. Thank you for being a part of this community. Bye!